Hi friends, I am back with another way to turn your client into that Mocha Mousse, that super trendy, like lived-in brunette tone that's not super contrasty, not super dimensional. It's very much trending right now. So I want to cover the express way to do this. You may have saw the recent video I did where I low lighted and then root melted and glossed. This way today we're just gonna keep it so simple. We're gonna literally root melt and gloss. That's it. We don't need to overthink it. We don't need to go crazy. And I'm gonna take you through how I complete that service and why I would do this as opposed to the other lived-in service that you saw me do a couple weeks ago. So let's jump in and get started. All right, friends, first thing I did was dampen her hair. Now, if somebody comes in with super dirty hair, you can shampoo it and condition and come back. If their hair is super clean, you can just wet it, maybe a little detangling spray. But I like to wet the hair first because water is a natural porosity equalizer. And a lot of times we're dealing with a situation where the hair is very porous. Now, my gal here has a lot of different levels going on. She's got a little bit of warmth, so her hair is not super porous, but I still like to apply these things on damp hair. The other reason I like to do this on damp hair is because it softens the blend. Automatically, water is softening the blend of your root melt into your mids and ends gloss, and it just makes it a lot more seamless. So I'm starting in the back here. I am going in with a Demi-permanent Color from Schwarzkopf IGORA VIBRANCE. This is 40 and 413. So 40 is just a 4N. 413 is Cendre, so blue violet matte. So it's matte is like green. So it's essentially neutralizing any warmth that will pop up in that level 40, which there will be warmth. I did equal parts of both of those, but I didn't do straight up 412 because she's got some blonde pieces up towards her roots and I didn't want it to look too cool. This Mocha Mousse trend that we're seeing that's super popular is I like to think of it as kind of like a very neutral brown, right? It's not super warm, although there's variations of it, right? So, you know, make it your own, but I'm kind of aiming for something a little bit more neutral here. Now, if you guys noticed my last video, which was the Mocha Mousse, but we did low lights, we did a root melt, and we did a gloss. I'm doing something different here, and I'm calling this the express version, but the reason that I'm able to do this express version, and I don't feel like I have to add in so many low lights, is because she's already got a lot of dimension in her hair. That previous client was pretty much solid on her ends, so I wanted to break that up and add dimension. But on a client that already has dimension, don't overthink it. Don't add in a ton of lowlights if they already have lowlights, right? Really, at that point, all we need to do is darken at the roots and gloss. Or in some cases, you could gloss all over and make the same color. But I think, you know, a lot of people are looking for something a little bit more, you know, multi-dimensional. So we're just gonna do a root melt and a gloss, and it's gonna be so simple and you guys will love how seamless it ends up being. Now, as far as the formula I selected, I'm going a little bit darker with this because I wanted to show a darker version of this Mocha Mousse. The last video I did was more kind of like a mid version. She wasn't super dark, she wasn't super light. It was kind of something neutral in between. This gal has a little bit darker of a base color. So if I did like a level 6 and 7 on her roots, probably wouldn't match her base. And my goal here is to erase that line of demarcation that she has happening with those blondes. So I wanna make sure that I go dark enough with that. Plus, I just want it to look like a little bit darker version of this color. So we are gonna just continue going up her head. This is, like I mentioned, Schwarzkopf IGORA VIBRANCE 4-0, 4-13 with 6 volume. I wanna mention actually one more thing before I finish this up. I would always use a Demi-permanent for this, especially on somebody that's blonde and wanting to go dark. Blondes have their things. They usually want to go back to blonde at some point. So a Demi-permanent's much easier to lift through. The other thing about a Demi-permanent color is I just feel like it's so much gentler on the hair and it's so reflective and it's so shiny. Nothing matches the shine and reflection of Vibrance in my opinion. So I would absolutely say I love sticking with a demi for this. If this client had gray and I wanted to blend her gray, I would use the same exact formula, but I would use 13 volume. 13 volume with IGORA Vibrance will actually get very, very good blending. They say blending, I say kind of coverage, honestly. In a lot of cases, you can get great coverage. If you had a client that wanted full 100% gray coverage, do this same exact thing, but use a permanent color, okay? Super simple. I'm gonna finish up applying this root melt in the back here, and then we'll come back when I get to the front and I'll show you guys how I do that. All right, so we applied to the back. So the first thing I'm gonna do when I get to the front section is just carve out about 1/2 inch to 1 inch around her hairline. I wanna apply this very last, and maybe even in some situations, you might wanna mix a little bit lighter formula for around the face, around the hairline. I'm just gonna apply it last so that it sits for a little bit less time, just so there's a little additional brightness around her face. So I'm doing the same exact thing over here. Just tapping the color on. And actually, I want to go back this way. I like to do this taking vertical sections so that you just run way less of a risk of having a harsh line of demarcation that goes horizontally. So we'll do some vertical sections here, still with my same formula. If you wanted a warmer version of this, you could just do the 4-0, skip the 4-1-3. You could just do a 5-0. The ends in Vibrance are super well balanced. I wouldn't say they're on the super cool side, but I wouldn't say they're super warm. They actually really are well balanced. But the 4-1-3 definitely adds a bit of coolness. So if you don't want that, just take that right out of your formula. And every couple of sections I'm combing to blend just to make sure I don't have any harsh lines of demarcation. Yeah, I'm just making sure that I have no lines. I don't want any lines when I finish this color. All right, so I'm gonna leave out that front little section there. And then I'm gonna go and do, I'll finish out the front, but then I'm gonna go and finish off the other side. As soon as I do that, I'm gonna come back and apply a gloss to the mids and ends, and then we're just gonna let her sit and process for a minute. I like using a wide tooth comb when I do this combing to blend. My goal here is to not drag the color down too far. I just really want to break up any lines of demarcation. Now, when I get around that front face frame piece right here, what I'm gonna do is just tap the color on right at the root. I'm not really dragging it down like I did everywhere else. I'm just tapping it so that it stays brighter a little bit higher up around her face. So I just keep it really subtle with my tap, tap, tap. Like I said, you could mix a lighter formula for right around the face if you want something a little bit softer, a little bit lighter. I'm gonna comb that little section kind of forward. Okay, I'm gonna go do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm gonna come back and we'll do our gloss all over. All right, friends, we got that root melt on everywhere. I let it sit for like 5 minutes, and now I'm gonna go back with this mids and ends gloss and put this everywhere. So you can see, as you guys know, how I do my mids and ends glosses. I am just not overthinking this. I'm just getting it on here. I'm just smushing, for lack of a better term. That's the technical term. We're just smushing it in. We're just getting it on there. So what I'm using for this formula is 6-0 and 6-12. Now 6-12 in Vibrance is level 6, 1 is Cendre, 2 is matte. So like basically a very cool, I'm sorry, 2 is ash, so blue. So it's basically a very cool, like level 6. So again, we're going for kind of the darker version of that Mocha Mousse here. So I want it to be kind of neutral, kind of, still have some dimension, but I don't want it to be super warm. I put the 6-0 in there because some pieces in her hair are cooler toned. So I wanted to make sure that if there is anything super cool, that 612 doesn't just get in there and make it so ashy and like so gray. So we're doing 6-0, 6-12 equal parts, and I'm using the 6 volume gel developer. I love the gel developer because it is just slippery. It's easier to work through the hair and manipulate when I'm doing a quick application like this, whereas the lotion, you get a much more precise application. I'm gonna let this sit for like the full 15 minutes. Every couple sections I want to comb to blend, but I basically picked something that was 2 levels lighter than what I did on the roots. So I do want to have a little bit of contrast, a little bit of variation, but I don't want to leave it too light. I'm gonna do the around the face stuff very last. So, same thing over here on this side. Just get it on there and let it sit for a little bit. Like I said, this is my go-to if somebody has, already built-in dimension. I would not take the time to go through and low light her. I just don't think it's necessary. You could, it would look still fine, but when we're thinking about efficiency and doing what we want in the least amount of steps possible, we want to think about stuff like this. Like, why do we need to go back and low light when she's already got essentially highlights and lowlights? The lowlights were her natural color, but they're still lowlights. Okay, I'm gonna go and do this color right around her face now, and then we're just gonna let her sit and process for about 15 minutes. Then we're gonna rinse her and I'm gonna show you the end result. But this is such a good example of how you don't have to overthink a service like this. It doesn't have to be this huge reverse balayage color correction thing. Just do a root melt and a gloss and you're set. All right, guys, we'll do one more comb to blend and then I'm gonna meet you guys back after we rinse her and she's all set. Okay, friends. I know I say this about all of them, but like, I love this color. It's mocha, it's moussey, but it's not so, it's not as light as the last version you saw me do. Obviously, since she already had dimension in there, it still looks dimensional. So that's why I just am a broken record with this. If they already have dimension, don't take the time to do the lowlights. Who cares? Like, you don't need to do that. Maybe if you need more depth, then by all means, but if they already have dimension, work with what they have. Don't waste your time doing 5 processes. Just do a root melt and a gloss. So I'm obsessed with the 4-0 and the 4-1-3. It's so perfect. Like, it's not super warm. It's not super cool. And if you wanted something cooler, skip the 4-0 and just go with 4-1-3. And then I love the transition into that level 6, which is just not too cool, not too warm. It's a really nice balance. I am super happy with this one. I'm gonna do the same thing and give her a little bit of a wave so we can just see it styled a little bit differently, but I feel really good about this. So I'll be back in just a few seconds, guys, and we'll style it differently. Okay, friends, we did a little curl on my gal here. So yeah, same thing as kind of what I spoke about in the previous little Mocha Mousse situation video. I would have your client come back. First of all, I would warn them that anytime you put anything over blonde, it's gonna fade, and it's gonna fade warm. It's inevitable, it's unavoidable, but there are ways that they can help it at home, such as using great products on their hair, less heat styling, just being mindful of great hair care, that will help. But have a conversation with them about the fact that it will fade and it will fade warm. I would probably have them come back the first time after you do it, maybe 8 weeks, just to check, see if you need to regloss it. After that, I mean, you could stretch this 6 months, honestly. There's not much maintenance that goes along with it. But I hope you enjoyed this. I had so much fun like creating this really quick express option. And I hope that this reminds you that you don't have to do 20 processes all the time. Sometimes it really is as simple as a root melt and a gloss. Thanks for watching, friends, and I will see you on the next one.